Welcome Aquarius to your in-depth monthly horoscope for December 2023 for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you some standout details to look out for, but please stay with me. I will explore in much greater depth all the ins and outs, particularly relevant to your sign. Now, this is a month when your friendship sector is really ignited. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything will go exactly as you hope or to plan, but the new moon of the 12th does forge a truly impressive alliance with the North Node. Also, your traditional ruler Saturn being a little bit hard going over the last month since it moved into the second house in early March. Well, that forges a very constructive link to the planet of growth and optimism, Jupiter, the last couple of weeks. So can't wait to share all of that with you. Please stay with me for more. Now, if you've yet to order your personal horoscope for year 2024, if you do so now, you can still get the rest of this year free. But also my special package, you'll get your character analysis report, your life roadmap, and 30% off, but also your year 2024 zodiac forecast for each of the 12 signs, but also Indian forecast for each of the 12 signs, and Chinese forecast for each of the 12 animal signs. Totally free of charge, those booklets. Please see the link below for more. So Aquarius, as you make your way into the month of December, the Sun, initially Mercury, and Mars are all in the 11th house. Now, the 11th house for you is the sign of Sagittarius, but there are some commonalities between Sagittarius, the Archer, and the water bearer Aquarius. What are they? Well, I feel that it's very much to do with an independence in terms of making assessments of situations based on what feels right, not necessarily following the crowd. There can be a friendliness, certainly a desire to be independent. So your natural joie de vivre can be amplified. It's just that with Mercury moving on the first day, it moves into your 12th house, which is a bit more muted. So I think the best way to handle that is to target your connections and your meetups to people that you actually feel really comfortable with, because of course since 2008 and Pluto going through Capricorn, there probably has been a lot of people who've made way, because Pluto in the 12th house does eventually reveal the people who have agendas of all different types and who may apply a degree of ruthlessness in their opposition, and it's not always spoken. They may just not be around. And that is the problem with the 12th house and Pluto. So Mercury moving there suggests that there could be some conversations going on a little bit behind the scenes, but there can still be some friendly meetups. The 4th sees Venus go right to the top of your chart. If you are going to be meeting people in a business context that can be important to you, the movers and the shakers, the people with their hands on the powers of lever, your charm can take you far. But Venus, of course, in Scorpio is detrimented. And in terms of a romantic situation, maybe what you're looking for here is a clearer demonstration of your commitment or the other person's commitment to you if you're loved up. If you're free but would like to meet someone, don't discount someone in your professional situation or someone who may come from a different age group to you. Now, of course, Scorpio can be quite secretive, would be a strong word, certainly a private sign, maybe very upfront expressing opinions on other people, but just be aware that the person who may start to have an interest in you may not manifest that in a verbal way. It may come through body language, so watch out for that non-verbal communication. The 6th sees the swirling mist, that is Neptune, and has been in retrograde for 158 days, go direct. Wonderful. But Saturn has also been in the second solar house since the 7th of March. And on top of the cost of living situation that we've all been dealing with, it's been asking us Aquarius people to really work hard to protect the foundations of our existence. And I think Neptune stationing direct helps, but I've got to be truthful with you. It then applies to the Sun, the Moon on Christmas Day, and Mercury and Mars in the last week in a potentially not so good way. So if you're someone who's really into a particular cause and you have a higher purpose around that cause, whether it is just your social group mean the world to you, or it is some kind of common interest or hobby that you get together with people, or it's a community situation that means a lot to you, that all comes up and sharply into focus with the new moon of the 12th of December, which forges a trine to the North Node. So your thinking, the third house, and your mode of expression, the third house, links with your higher values and your longer term plan. So something's very clear to you. This is a very important new moon because Mars is quite close to the Sun, which adds more leverage, power, passion, traction, thrust. However, from the 12th through to the 19th, the Sun is squared up by Neptune. What happens when the Sun and Neptune are squared is the wateriness of Neptune can erode the thrust and power of the Sun. And you could have some subtle senses about some people that you're friendly with or you associate with who have very different values to you. And they may not necessarily express them openly because of the Neptune energy being housed in Pisces. But just be conscious of it, particularly from the 13th when Mercury goes retrograde in your 12th house, because Mercury retrogrades are controversial. I think a lot of professional astrologers will acknowledge that glitches can definitely happen through the whole season. The pre-retrograde shadow actually began on the 25th of November. So it's a 10-week period when things can be glitchy, but we can't stop the whole world for over 30 weeks a year because of the Mercury retrograde season. So people will say you should never sign a contract, buy a car, go out on a first date and all the rest of it. That is quite an extreme view, because what we can do with Mercury retrograde is try to understand where it's going to make us gain greater understanding, clarity, which is its Virgoan role, or have the conversation or the thoughts, its Gemini role. So in the sign of Capricorn, it's very businesslike, but for you it's in house 12, which can be about trust, psychological issues, anxieties, lack of self-confidence, shyness. All of those things could manifest themselves a little bit more, but they will only manifest in your situation if they're part of you anyway. But even if they do manifest themselves, it's an opportunity to work on them, because that's what life's about. It's a body of work. We have to work at it, and that's where Saturn even can be an asset to us if we apply ourselves. If we feel that we're passive to the planets and they're totally in control of this, that's a kind of bad way to be, really. So I feel that we can work with the planets in a constructive way, but we still have, to use a more modern term, we still have our personal agency over the whole situation. So if you do find yourself having some doubts about some people in your circle, there's a reason for that. You know, your instincts are telling you that maybe your trust is not necessarily being reciprocated in the way that you would like. Having said that, from the 18th to the 23rd, Venus and Uranus go into an electric opposition. Let's leave aside the signs that they're in terms of the houses for you, which in fact is 10-4, and let's think more about their archetypes in terms of their energy. So Venus is about lust in Scorpio, absolutely. Could be about lust around money and career for you, 10th house, but Venus in Scorpio is very desirous, and Uranus is a very speedy energy that will either connect or disconnect to an extreme. So just be aware of that. For example, because Venus in the 10th house is about work, there may be someone that may disturb your emotional peace of mind because they crash into your consciousness in a dramatic way, but you may find them very hard to ignore. So in other words, you could encounter someone who really makes your pulse race. Then again, another way of looking at this, if you're wanting a stable relationship and you're in one, Uranus could create some kind of tension point, or there could be somebody else who finds you very alluring and some temptation can come up because the sign of Taurus is very sensual, and Uranus obviously is doesn't like being in Taurus, and Uranus opposite Mars creates earthquakes in Iceland, those big fissures, because they're both fixed, both trying to resist, but both trying to push. So tension. And that can be played out in a slightly different way on this aspect. So it's going to be interesting. Then again, if you're working very, very hard and that's causing some dislocation at home and someone doesn't understand that, whether it's your kids or parents or a partner, then that could create some frustration. But the 22nd sees the winter solstice, very important day in the Western tropical astrological calendar, ushers in cardinal quadrant 4, the last 13-week quarter of the year, which takes us up to the start of the astrological calendar on the spring equinox. So for you, 12th house energy again, and you'll be thinking, oh my word, with all this Pluto stuff all over these years, do I need any more of this? Of course not, but there's a reward coming for all that hard work, that inner work that's been done over a long time. If you've really done it, it's coming back to you. The 23rd, however, Mercury dashes back into Sagittarius. Someone who's been mysteriously out of touch and you've been sort of rather perplexed about why that is, gets in touch. You may or may not be satisfied with their reason. It may not be a love situation, could even be a business situation. But what's going to happen is that Mercury and Mars come together, Mercury in its retrograde, Mars in its advance, in the end phase of this month, and that can create some drama in a positive way. On Christmas Day, the moon's brilliant for you. It's in house 5. It is squaring up with Neptune. The chances are that if you enjoy Christmas pud, as I do, I actually had a Christmas pud last Sunday. Lovely, with brandy. Well, it was really nice. So if you enjoy the good things in life, Neptune in the second house is going to suggest you're going to want to quaff and scoff to some excess, but it's probably going to be a very pleasant day. The 27th, however, is a full moon. This full moon is the 6/12 axis. The moon in its home sign of Cancer, the 6th house, is asking you to be mindful of, the basics in your life. Maybe if things have got a bit scattered with the build up to Christmas, you might want to have a bit of a tidy up. You might want to just tune out from other people and have a rest. Have a few early nights. It's entirely your choice. But the last 2 weeks of this month, your traditional ruler Saturn links to Jupiter. Jupiter is in the 4th house through till the 23rd of May. If you have been doing anything to do with repurposing a home, redecorating it, renovating it, moving altogether, or you've got family situation is evolving, that's a very solid, lovely influence, because Jupiter is about, going for the things that will bring better things to our life, and Saturn just anchors it a little bit and asks it to be a bit more sensible, because Jupiter can promise more than it actually can deliver. Saturn, of course, can be a misery guts, and it's just saying, whatever you're thinking of doing, particularly around where you live, think the plan through carefully. But you could have some good conversations with people through the interlude between Christmas Day and New Year's Day. When you have those chats on the stairs at gatherings and get chatting to someone you've never met before and just thought, what a lovely chap, or what a lovely person. And, the conversation flows, and you could end up getting some really good advice about something. The 29th, however, sees Venus join up with the retreating Mercury, the thrusting Mars, in, guess what, the 11th house. So your 11th house, despite the fact that we have the winter solstice and the Sun joining Pluto in house 12, more reflective, and Mercury being there from the 1st through to the 23rd, more reflective. As the year comes to a close, I actually can feel that you're going to be quite playful. Of course, it's important to be with the people that you feel really at ease with. Trust is always an issue with that 12th house. But the reward I was talking about is that Jupiter and the Sun come into an exact trine on the 27th. It begins on Christmas Day. I feel it goes on really within 3 degrees, it's to the 28th. But as we swing into the new year, they're in touch enough for it to give you a backdrop energy that can really support you right throughout 24 in terms of your solar return. So Jupiter's in the 4th house. You want to add to the family, improve where you live, move, forge closer emotional relationships with the right people. It can be done in a way which some fortune can come back to you, because this is a very, very fortuitous link. But the Sun in the 12th house means that all the toil that perhaps has gone on with Pluto going through Capricorn since 2008, it is going to start to show a reward. That will become much more obvious by the 21st of January. For sure, depending on where you are in Aquarius, Pluto does check back into Capricorn later in the year. It's a brief interlude, but that's it. It's with us water bearers long term then, and from the middle of November 24. And you know, it is a chance to really relaunch in a much more dynamic way. So I think there's a lot of water that's gone under the bridge, but a lot of sacrifices have been made. You've learned a tremendous amount about what makes you tick, but also about what makes other people tick. And probably there's been quite a clear out of the people who just weren't actually good enough for you. To be honest, it sounds horrible, but the rejection may have come from them. You know, and you've probably over time, like me, come to terms with the fact that however awful that can be, there is a bigger reason, and nobody who's really right for us is still sticking around in your life. So Jupiter linking to the Sun means that a lot of emotional healing, support and warmth can come into your world, and I truly hope mine, in year 2024. I want you to know that if you are on your own on Christmas Day, I definitely will be thinking about you. I always do. Whatever your status, have a wonderful time. I should just say that Neptune also squares up with Mercury and Mars in the last week. So when it comes to expenditure this month, just be mindful of who you spend it on. You may encounter friends that actually have different values to you, but the real true comrades will be with you as the cosmic curtain drops on 23. I'm wishing you all the best for the new year. I'd be honoured if you would like, comment, share or subscribe.